love it. I can just stop recording this because it's completely redundant now. Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Welcome to another edition of the Welcome to another edition of Stating the Obvious, brought to you by the Cynical Libertarian Society. I am Skippy. In the control room, the lovely, the adorable, the cute and cuddly, the Republican, but we won't hold it against her for the moment, Randy. Email address here at STO is sto@204eastsouth.com. Today is the 5th of April still. We are trucking along. We're talking about utilitarianism. The reason that Randy and I were laughing so hard at the beginning here is we were having a discussion about ways to solve moral dilemmas. And it occurred to us that maybe the best way to solve all of these moral dilemmas would be to simply Rochambeau for it. You know, you get two philosophers together, and one of them says, well, euthanasia is morally right. The other one says euthanasia is morally wrong. Let's go, okay, well, Rochambeau for it. Now, of course, those of you who don't know what Rochambeau is are not laughing because you don't know what Rochambeau is. So, you need to go watch more South Park. Rochambeau, you for it? That's how we'll decide all the great moral issues of our time. We put the philosophers Rochambeau each other. Okay, where are we? Nice big refreshing drink of Canada Dry Ginger Ale. Little product placement there. I don't normally do product placement unless it's something I really like, and I really love Canada Dry Ginger Ale. The main reason so many people cling to utilitarianism: animal rights. Just as Christians start with homos burn in hell and then go looking for facts to support that belief, so too do the animal rights wackos, that's ARWs, start with animals have rights and then go looking for facts to support this belief. And we discussed this in class, how Christianity takes passages in the Bible and interprets / perverts them, takes them out of context, however you want to look at it, in order to support various beliefs, such as abortion is murder, or homosexuals are going to go to hell, and blah blah blah. Animal rights wackos, of course, do exactly the same thing. And in their search for a moral theory that supports their idea that animals have rights, this always leads them to utilitarianism, as this is the one moral theory, so far as I'm aware, which, and I wrote in my notes, specifically assigns the same moral value to animals as it does to humans. Or does it, as we shall investigate in a minute. But actually, I'm not even sure. Well, Bentham did not assign the same moral rights to animals as to humans. He said that animals should be considered, but that they were not the same. Mill, I'm not 100% sure where Mill comes down on that topic, truth be told. And we'll look into some of Mill's stuff, because I can certainly tell you my analysis of where Mill comes down on the topic. But my analysis of where he comes down on the topic is a lot different than where he comes down on the topic, obviously. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. I've never seen in the writing where exactly he says yes or no one way or the other. Where was I? Once having accepted utilitarianism for this reason, the animal rights wacko has to stick with utilitarianism, even if it fails to support the other moral beliefs animal rights wackos have, such as the right to abortion, euthanasia, the wrongness of slavery, all of which we've already covered. Alrighty then, number 2. Do animals have rights other than the right to be eaten by me? In the context of this discussion, who cares? If they do have rights, utilitarianism still doesn't work, so their rights must come from some other source. The animal rights wackos always like to put this in the frame of, do the animals have rights? And I think it's, to a large extent, it's irrelevant to what we're talking about here, which is not, do animals have political rights? We're talking about, does utilitarianism as a whole work? And does utilitarianism as a whole give animals rights? And let me re-clarify my distinction here. If an animal has moral rights, let's say that an animal has, alright, let me come at it this way. Regardless, animals either have moral rights or they don't, under whatever moral truth, whatever there is out there. Whether they do or not has no effect on whether or not utilitarianism is valid. If animals do in fact have rights, and if utilitarianism says the rights of animals have to be considered, this is just a happy coincidence. If utilitarianism tomorrow decides that animals don't have rights anymore, if animals really do have moral rights, they're going to continue to have moral rights. It doesn't matter what utilitarianism says. So what we're not examining here, necessarily, although we might get to this later, is, do animals have rights or not? We are examining animal rights in the context of utilitarianism. Number 3, under utilitarianism, are animals equal to humans? No, they are not. And according to who? According to Mill. And I did it again on my notes here. I called him Mills. There's only, did I correct? I need to see if I corrected it. There's only one Mill. He is not plural. Mill writes, okay, I'm going to read some Mill here. Wills, do I want to read this? The notes are here. You people could read this for yourself. Now I better read this. Mill writes, if I am asked what I mean by difference of quality in pleasures, or what makes one pleasure more valuable than another, merely as a pleasure, except its being greater in amount, there is but one possible answer. Of two pleasures, if there be one to which all or almost all who have experienced of both give a decided preference, irrespective of any feeling of moral obligation to prefer it, that is the more desirable pleasure. A being of higher faculties requires more to make him happy, is capable probably of more acute suffering, and certainly accessible to it at more points than one of an inferior type. But in spite of these liabilities, he can never really wish to sink into what he feels to be a lower grade of existence. Whomever supposes that this preference takes place at a sacrifice of happiness, that the superior being, in anything like equal circumstances, is not happier than the inferior, confounds the two very different ideas of happiness and content. It is indisputable that the being whose capacities of enjoyment are low has the greatest chance of having them fully satisfied, and a highly endowed being will always feel that any happiness which he can look for, as the world is constituted, is imperfect. But he can learn to bear its imperfections, if they are at all bearable, and they will not make him envy the being who is indeed unconscious of the imperfections, but only because he feels not that all the good which those imperfectly qualify. It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied, better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. And if the fool or the pig are a different opinion, it is because they only know their side of the question. The other party to the comparison knows both sides. Ooh, that was long-winded. I have to avoid reading philosophy in the future. That was bad. Right. Anyway, if you get the notes, there is a website address where you can find this whole thing. Now let's look at a couple of key phrases here. Let's take a look at what this is leading us to. Keep in mind, utilitarianism is based on the GHP. The objective is the greatest quality and quantity of happiness for the greatest number of beings, while also reducing... Whoops, and now I've got another wrong... excuse me. wrong word in my notes, while also reducing the quality and quantity of pain to the minimum amount. Now, referencing the passage which I just read, Mill writes, "Of two pleasures, if there be one to which all or almost all who have experienced of both give a decided preference, irrespective of any feeling of moral obligation to prefer it, that is the more desirable pleasure. In other words, some pleasures are better than other pleasures, and this can be determined objectively according to Mill." It is not Mills. I wrote Mills again. Remember, this is decided objectively and scientifically by the calculus of felicity. Mill writes, "A being of higher faculties requires more to make him happy, is capable probably of more acute suffering." So a being of higher faculties, higher intelligence, beings of, I need to fix my notes again, beings, plural, of higher faculties or intelligence are capable of greater pleasures and greater pain than beings of lower faculties. Okay, Mill writes, "He can never really wish to sink into what he feels to be a lower grade of existence." So what Mill is saying here is that there are lower grades of existence. And what might these lower grades be? They might be lawyers, Democrats, tree huggers, Christians, or could he be talking about animals? Personally, I think he's talking about Democrats, but that's my interpretation. That the superior being in anything like equal circumstances is what Mill writes. Now the important thing is here, Mill says the superior being. He's saying there are superior beings. Who might these be? Well, obviously I'm one of them. But generally speaking, Randy's eye-rolling in the control room. Generally speaking, I believe he's probably referring to people. Near the end, of course, his famous little passage, "It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied." So an unhappy person is still better than a happy pig. Now, when Mill is talking about better, remember, he's talking about better happens in the context of experiencing pain and pleasure. I need to write that into my notes because I know better in context of pain, pleasure. Thus, if the aim of utilitarianism is to create the greatest happiness, as we have seen humans are capable of greater and better happiness than animals, our satisfaction must count for more under the GHP. If our satisfaction counts for more, morally speaking, than that of animals, then animals cannot be morally equal to humans under the beliefs of utilitarianism. Let me talk about this without reading the notes now, as soon as I take a drink of cool, refreshing Canada Dry ginger ale. I should send them a bill for advertising. Product placement. Yeah. I mean, Hollywood makes a ton of money off of that crap. I should get paid for it also. Alright. Let's run this down. In this passage, Mill makes 5 specific statements. He says that some pleasures are better than other pleasures. We know this. This is the hierarchy of pleasure, which he talks about in many other places. He makes the statement that beings of higher faculties are capable of greater pleasures and greater pains than beings of lower faculties. So he's made a distinction. Some creatures have higher faculties, some have lower faculties. He says that a person of the higher faculties can never really wish to sink into what he feels is a lower grade of existence. So he has confirmed that there is a lower grade of existence. He then talks about the superior being. He is confirming that there is a superior being. Finally, he says that it's better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. Why? Because obviously, the human being dissatisfied is superior to the pig satisfied, which is one of the lower grades of existence. Now remember, all of these things where Mill is coming up and saying this is superior, this is inferior, is all based on the ability to experience, and not just experience But, excuse me. Remember, it's not just about being able to experience pain and pleasure, but it's the amount of, let me start over, it's the quality of the pleasure, can't talk, it's the quality of the pleasure that matters. The Socrates is able to experience a higher quality of pleasure than the fool because Socrates can understand, say for instance, philosophy, whereas the fool cannot. So this is where, so these distinctions come from the brain cramp. Okay. These distinctions of superior and lower grade of existence, to use the words Mill uses, come from a being's ability to experience not just quantity but quality of pleasure. And since in utilitarianism, right and wrong is determined by that which creates the greatest quality and quantity of happiness, by this we can infer that there is more GHP satisfaction achieved by providing a greater quality of happiness to those who can understand it. What's the point of all this? The point of all this is that utilitarianism is happiness-based. Animals are not capable of experiencing the same quality. And quantity-wise, I'm not sure. I think maybe we could argue either way on quantity. I'll have to think about that for a while. But quality-wise, animals are not capable of experiencing the same quality of happiness as human beings are. Since utilitarianism, right and wrong, is based on happiness, this, at its simplest, makes animals less, well, a lower grade of existence, as Mill says in here in his passage. Therefore, if you're going to make the argument, if you're an animal rights wacko, and you're going to be making the argument that animals are equal to humans, ethically and morally, I hate to break it to you, but utilitarianism does not agree with you. According to Mill, in utilitarianism, animals are a lower grade of existence. So it's not working for you. Just give it up. How are we on time? 18? I'm trying to decide how I want to break this down. If I want to do multiple... Let's see, we could do this, we could do this. So what's the... Okay, and then we could break it there. Alright, let's do it. PETA, Greenpeace, and Animal Rights Wackos. What's really going on? So, I've already mentioned I had to watch these same stupid Animal Rights Wacko films. We'll cover these in depth. It's always interesting. Let's see, Oh, I also find it interesting that we get films about animal rights, but nothing else. Is animal rights the only ethical question that anyone has ever made a film about? You always have to wonder about that. It's, he hasn't shown us films on anything else. We only get to see films on the animals. Am I gonna, excuse me while I flip through my notes to see what I have brought up in the just see, this is here, this is here, this is here. Did I? Yeah, okay. Now I'll just go ahead and attack it now. Part of the reason I think that whenever you do utilitarianism, you gotta watch these animal rights wacko films in your class, is because these people are simply attempting to manipulate you utilizing emotion. I mean, they know that they don't have any actual logical intelligent basis for their idea that animals have rights. They know that utilitarianism doesn't really work for what they're trying to do with it. And this is why, like, as in the example of this class, Spear has never actually discussed utilitarianism. He's never actually discussed what it is, where it came from, historical context. Excuse me. excuse me again. He's never brought any of this stuff up because he knows it's just going to make him look bad. This is why, as soon as you hit utilitarianism, the animal rights wackos get out their films of the animals being killed, and they throw them up there, and they don't allow much debate on the topic, and this is because, excuse me, water. This is because they are attempting to manipulate people by utilizing emotion. They have to do this because they know that they have no logical argument to back up their silly beliefs. Spear kicked off the film fest with Meet Your Meat by PETA. You can view this film on the internet at www.meetyourmeat.com. Alright. Let's see, I'm looking over my notes. Okay, I'll kind of go in order here. I'll kind of use this. Now, I don't know, having never been in a meat processing factory, and certainly having not been in every meat processing factory in the world, I don't know how widespread the practices are that were shown in this film. We also, interestingly enough, don't know how old this film is, because PETA's not going to tell you they filmed this, 10 years ago, and that, believe it or not, things change. That's what I love about this stuff. They use this ancient propaganda. My friend Sarah, who is an animal sciences major, says that most meatpacking plants are nothing like this anymore. Certainly there are still some that are bad, but most of them are not. We also need to point out that there are different industries with different standards. There's the beef industry in general, which is regarded as having the highest standards and really getting their shit together and all this other stuff, and killing the cattle humanely and treating the cattle properly and all this other stuff. And there are other things shown in the film, and don't get me wrong, I don't totally disagree with everything in this film, not by a long shot. Veal calves, putting them in the little box and everything like that, I think that's disgusting. Cause first of all, let me state where my position is on this, and then we'll work from there. That'll make more logical sense. I eat animals, and I'm going to keep eating animals. However, I think that while the animals are alive, we, as the morally and intellectually superior species, owe it to the animals to provide them with the highest quality of life possible. That is, I believe, the right thing to do. Why? Because it just is. Don't see, that's a legitimate question. No, it's a legitimate question to bring up because we are talking about philosophy. Why do we have that obligation? I don't really know. I haven't worked on pinning it down. It's kind of like, why do I have an obligation not to go out and shoot little children just for the fun of it? Okay, it's because I know I do. Does it fucking matter why? I know actually it does. Actually, no, it does matter why. You're right, Randy. But I'm not delving into that right now. These are just my positions. We have the responsibility to care for the animals and provide them with the highest quality of life we possibly can, within reason. I mean, we can't build every one of them we can't spend billions of dollars on one animal. But at the same time, we shouldn't be simply seeking to maximize profit, which is what happens in many cases. We have a responsibility to provide these animals with the highest quality of life we can before we eat them. I prefer to eat an animal that has been outside, running around in the weather and, walking on the grass and grazing naturally and all this other good stuff. That is my personal preference. Having said all of that, there are definitely industries out there, as were shown in this film, and as was agreed to by my friend Sarah, that have problems. I mean, veal calves, that's disgusting. I don't eat veal. I've eaten veal in the past, and I thought it was pretty tasty, but I don't eat it anymore now that I know where it comes from. The poultry industry is probably the worst. I haven't bought a chicken at the grocery store in ages. I rarely eat chicken, because, chickens are highly abused and misused and everything else. I buy eggs, of course, because I have to have eggs for cooking. But the poultry industry needs to get its shit together, and I think that it's coming, that it is going to get its shit together. Excuse me. The Canada Dry product plug ginger ale is kicking back. The other piggies piggies. Factory farming of pigs is, in my opinion, wrong and bad. Although we did hear some interesting responses to that in the debate, which we'll get to later. And what am I figuring? Oh, dairy cattle. It's dairy cattle. There's a lot of bad things going on there too. That's one reason I don't drink milk. But yeah, they've bred these cows to produce a lot of milk, but they've also bred these cows that sometimes can't even stand up. And there's a dairy farm near here in Fort Collins. I haven't actually been there, but I've been told by somebody who has been there that when calves are born, if the calves are bulls, they take them and they throw them in the trash dumpster because you can't get milk from a bull. I mean, they don't even kill them or anything first. They just take the bull's calves and throw them in the trash dumpster. So I mean, that's some sick, fucked up shit. Part of the problem here, and I'm not sure if this is part of the problem or part of the solution, or the solution and the problem, because this is now a government thing, and we all know I'm a libertarian. Of course, part of the problem is that there are no government standards for the treatment of livestock. And I'm slowing down here because this is one of the things that I'm not sure. As a libertarian, I've got to be opposed to government as often as possible. I don't got to be like that, but I mean, I am. This is one of those things where I've really got to think about it and say, is this something the government should be involved in, or is this something that could be handled? And see, do I have notes on this? Let's see, let's see, Okay, I can add, let me add this in over here, actually. I'll get to this in a minute. Sorry, I'm writing. Okay. So now that we've established my opinion on how livestock animals should be treated, now that we've established that yes, in fact, there are livestock animals that are abused and mistreated and all that other good stuff, and that I disagree with that. Holy smack, look at that, Randy. The sun is starting to come out. It might not be a completely crappy day after all. Alright, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, sorry. What was I talking about? Train of thought. Okay. Livestock treated inhumanely sometimes. Yes, it's bad. I want to eat it. Oh, why do I want to eat animals that are running around outside in a pasture and healthy and not getting all kinds of weird shots and hormones and bacteria, antibiotics, antibiotics, all this other stuff? Because first of all, it's better for the animal mentally and physically, and thus the animal is better meat. And secondly, to know the animal is happy makes me happy, as I like animals way more than I like people. I think we've beat that. I think we've beat the dead horse to death. Yeah, on the side of dead horses, I watched Unforgiven yesterday, the Clint Eastwood movie. That was pretty good. I was impressed. It has nothing to do with utilitarianism, sorry. Okay, and I made that note. Alright. Speer noted that the federal government lets unhealthy meat through the inspection process. Well, they probably do. Federal government also lets terrorists fly airplanes into buildings in spite of having the most powerful intelligence gathering network on Earth and the most powerful military. So hey, guess what? The logic comes from this, if you're a utilitarian progressive communist, is that the government should also be in charge of healthcare, because that's going to solve all of our problems. Now, Speer made the point at one thing, a couple of times. He actually mentions how much money PETA has. Now, here's an interesting thing, and this will just take us into the next one also. If PETA has, first of all, okay, so the federal government is letting infected meat go through the inspection process. Now, PETA supposedly cares about animals, and theoretically, maybe they care about people. I mean, this is interesting. If PETA thinks animals are equal to people, then they'd have to care about people also, right? And PETA has all this money. So if PETA has all this money, and if PETA cares so much, why doesn't PETA set up a system for inspecting meat? for diseases and all this other stuff. Because think, if there is all this infected, diseased meat getting out into the public, wouldn't it be great for PETA's point of view to catch and document and make known exactly how much diseased meat is getting out there? And if the meat isn't fucked up, as the industry maintains, then I see a great opportunity here. PETA could do these inspections and put some of this money they have to use for something other than making propaganda films, because this would be helping their cause theoretically if there's all this bad meat out there. Of course, it could also help the cause of the meat packagers if it's not out there. But if PETA actually cares about people, which it should, then this would also be doing a service for the people who eat the meat. Or could it be that maybe people who eat meat aren't really people that PETA cares about? So maybe there's a little bias there. You ever think about that? Oh, yeah. See, meat eaters are maybe inferior to vegetarians. If animal life, I'm on number 3 now. If animal life is worth the same as human life, why doesn't PETA use some of that money they have to help animals? Now here's... Yeah. Okay. Let's say that you are standing outside of a Nazi concentration camp, since we like talking about Nazis so much in this class. Spear loves talking about Jews in concentration camps. And he likes talking about retard burgers. And what's the other thing? Oh yeah, and there's this child who dies every 6 seconds. If this child dies, he'll do that. A child dies every 6 seconds. I want to ask him, if this child dies every 6 seconds, shouldn't the little motherfucker be dead by now? You would think. You'd think he'd be a goner if he's dying every 6 seconds. I know. I'm a sick bastard. You're standing outside a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. There's a bunch of Jews in there. Oh, I need to ask Sarah this question. Alright. You say to the commandant of the camp, I'll give you $10,000 if you let me have one of those Jews. The commandant, he'd probably sell you a Jew for $10,000. You could take it, you can run away. Now the question is, would it be worth it? Would it be worth $10,000 to save the life of one of these people in this concentration camp? Most people would probably say yes, it would. Now, if PETA believes that animals and people are equal, you have to ask yourself this. Why doesn't PETA go to the meat processing plants, or actually go to the people who raise the cattle, and say to them, look, when you sell that cow to the meat processing plant, you're going to get, I need to ask Sarah how much you can get for a cow. I have no idea. We're going to say $1,000. When you sell that cow to the meat processing plant, they're going to give you $1,000 for that cow. We will give you $2,000 for that cow. Now, most people, because they're trying to make a profit, would probably not have a problem with this. They'd sell you the cow for $2,000. Then PETA could take this cow and put it out on a nice pasture somewhere and let it live out the remainder of its life. Yet PETA has all this money and they don't do that. Why don't they do that? This is odd. Because remember, during World War II, there were entire German families who risked their lives, of everyone in the family, by hiding Jews up in the attic. All those people could have died just to protect other human lives. Now, if PETA truly believes that animal life is equal to human life, then wouldn't PETA at the least be willing to spend some money to save the life of an animal? I'm not even asking the PETA members to say, kill me instead of killing the cow. I'm not even asking for that. I'm just saying, you've got all this money, spend some of it. And they're not doing this. And the point I'm getting at here, the irrefutable point, is that PETA clearly, in spite of anything they may say, does not believe that an animal life is equivalent to a human life. Otherwise, they'd actually be doing something about it. That's an interesting place for that note. And on the same note of PETA having all this money, PETA is... Why doesn't... Oh, well, yeah. This is kind of what I've talked about. Why doesn't PETA create some sort of oversight organization, even if it's voluntary, that examines... I already mentioned examining the meat for diseases and stuff like that, but why not examine cattle for being antibiotic-free? Because the story came up... Let me give this a little more context and background. The story came up about how somebody wanted to raise organically, if this is the right word, organically certified cows for meat. You know, to certify that this meat came from cattle which did not receive steroids or antibiotics. Thank you, Randy. Antibiotics or anything else like that. And it turned out that in order to have your cow certified organic, all you had to do is sign a paper saying you didn't give them anything. There's no test or anything like that. And I agree that's a little iffy, you know. So, again, if PETA or any of these other organizations care so much, why don't they set up an organization that would come around and examine your cows and certify that your cows are free of hormones or antibiotics? Some people will say, well, this wouldn't work, but look at the lab animal industry. Thank you, Randy. Jeez. I'm going to get Randy little flashcards of all the words that I can't think of so she can hold them up for me instead of having to scribble them on the whiteboard in there. Alright, where was I? Oh, okay. In the lab animal industry, we have ALAS, the American Laboratory Animal Society, what the hell ever it is. ALAS sets regulations, sets standards by which you should take care and provide for your animals. Now, participating in these standards, doing them, is not required by any stretch of the imagination. But if you don't do them, you're not going to get many people to utilize your research lab. So you pretty much got to do it. The same thing can easily be done in the livestock market. Now, it might take a while for an organization like this to get recognized, but PETA, if it cares so much, could start an organization that will come out to where you raise your livestock and will look at... And I don't know if PETA is necessarily a good example to use for this, because PETA obviously is just people who hate people that eat meat. And they're a bunch of fucking idiots and wackos. And see, this is exactly why I can't stand the people, because there's no room here with these idiots for any kind of reasoning or intelligence or anything else. If they cared so fucking much, which they don't, and we'll get to that in a minute. If they cared so much, why couldn't they set up a oversight committee, an oversight organization that you would voluntarily go to as a cattle farmer? And this organization would come out to your ranch, wherever you keep your cattle, and would check on them and would see, are these cattle being kept in adequately humane conditions? Are these cattle being fed proper diet and not being given things that, what do you call it, remnants from other dead cattle, you know, where you can spread mad cow and all that other stuff? Are they being fed properly and nutritionally? Are these cattle free of growth hormones and unnecessary antibiotics? Are they not being juiced up with any kind of stuff? Are these cows being transported to the slaughterhouse in a humane manner? Once you get to the slaughterhouse, it's kind of out of control of the farmer, the rancher, excuse me. But, you know, PETA could come in and set up an oversight organization that would look at all those things and then certify that, yes, these cows are disease-free, these cows are free of antibiotics and steroids and other unnecessary medications, these cows are treated humanely during their life. Because after all, PETA has all this money to make all these films with what's that idiot's name, Alec Baldwin? Alec Baldwin narrates Meet Your Meat. You know, it's like, why don't you take your little faggot ass back to Hollywood? I'm sorry. No, I just called Alec Baldwin a faggot. I apologize to homosexuals for insinuating that Alec Baldwin might be anywhere near your level as a human being or an intellect. I apologize to homosexuals for insulting you by lumping you in with Alec Baldwin. That was unnecessarily cruel and inhumane. PETA would not approve of that. Where am I? The real agenda of PETA is, of course, power. It hasn't got a fucking thing to do with animals. People will argue this, and people will be wrong. Now, we have to distinguish, like all other movements, and I don't necessarily like talking about movements, but sometimes you have to, like the gay movement and the feminazi movement and, the Christian focus on the family, idiots, whatever. And the Every Sperm is Sacred group. All of these groups, these movements, these collections of idiots, there's two kinds of people. There's the rank and file members and there's the leadership. And the agendas of these two are usually vastly different. In PETA, I think the average rank and file member, what Stalin referred to as useful idiots, I think the average useful idiot in PETA genuinely cares about animals. Or at least they think they do, in so much as their limited mental capacity has allowed them to seriously think about the issue. But I'm not worried about the useful idiots, because the useful idiots can be useful for other things too. I'm worried about the leadership. The leadership of PETA, the people who could do the thing that I just talked about, the people who could make a difference but don't. These people are simply interested in power. First of all, being a member of the leadership of PETA gives you a lot of power and influence over other human beings. You've got all these useful idiots out there awaiting with bated breath your word to tell them what to do. There's a lot of power there. You have the ability to get yourself quoted in newspapers and magazines. You have the ability to get on television. You have the ability to draw a nice fat paycheck for basically being powerful. I mean, if it wasn't for PETA, the people who are now leaders of PETA would have to go out and get a real job where you have to actually produce something useful to somebody in order to get money. As it is now, they're simply telling useful idiots what to do and manipulating them, and they're getting paid for this. I mean, that's a great gig. I mean, you can't really... I'd love to have a gig like that. I ain't gonna lie to you. It'd be wonderful. So there's a difference in the agenda between the leadership of PETA and the rank and file members. And for the leadership, it's all about the power. At the end of Meet Your Meat, it gave a phone number or address or something where you could contact them to get a vegetarian starter kit. And I thought that was pretty funny, because I'd like to know, what the hell is a vegetarian starter kit? If you need a starter kit to be a vegetarian, it's like, what does it have, like little cards that show this is a carrot. Carrots are a vegetable. Then it has a picture of a steak. It says this is a steak. A steak is meat. Do not eat the steak, only eat the carrot. I mean, what is a vegetarian starter kit? Are people out there who are going to join PETA so stupid that they need a starter kit to explain to them how to not eat meat? And what does this say about the intelligence of the average person who joins PETA? Well, it tells us that they are a useful idiot, is what it tells us. How are we on time, Randy? 44? I'm trying to decide, do I want to cruise or do I want to break this in half? I'll cruise. The Pig Picture by the Humane Farming Association. The Humane Farming Association is not opposed to eating meat. They just want animals to be taken care of correctly. They show a film where they show pigs in... Oh, brain cramp. In what do you call it? Factory farms, thank you. Where they show pigs in factory farms. I'm against factory farms, as I've already stated. I love bacon. I would like to eat bacon that's been outside running around in the weather, not in a factory farm in a confinement cell. and we can make I can make some comments on that. I'm going to save that for later in the debate. They talked about the pigs and learned helplessness, how the pigs are confined and they eventually learn they can't get out of the cell, and so they just basically become stupefied mental vegetables. And I thought it was interesting because it kind of reminded me of welfare recipients. Yet one more good reason given to us by Animal Rights Wackos. Well, I guess the Humane Farming Association isn't Animal Rights Wackos, but close enough. One more reason we should get people off welfare, because the same thing happens. When you confine them to welfare, they just turn into mental vegetables. Antibiotics in animals, they talked about loading the pigs with antibiotics, and we also got an interesting perspective on that from the debate session, so maybe I will save that for that. I hope I don't forget. Let me make some notes real quick here, folks. Hang on with me. I'm sorry about this. But let's see, debate, confinement, squash pigs, and antibiotics, immune system. Alright. Utah exempted a pig farm from lawsuits in order to get the pig farm to come there and generate jobs and revenue and all this stuff. Apparently Utah made a law that exempted this pig farm from any lawsuits that could potentially damage them. And I found this interesting because, again, let's remember, the same people who are animal rights wackos are the same people who want the government to control healthcare and the government to control euthanasia and all that other stuff. But this is the same government that does things like exempt the pig farm from lawsuits. Yes, I can't wait until the government runs everything. I wonder if that'll make these people happy. No, it won't. Greenpeace. I think the name of the film is Bitter Harvest. It's that film that's like 30 years old. It's about killing the little seals in Canada. It has very low production values and really bad sound balance. And it's embarrassing because I used to support Greenpeace back when I was young and stupid and didn't know any better. Alright, now first of all, I thought Canada was the land of milk and honey. Now let's remember, we just had an election not long ago, and all these fucking idiots who voted for Kerry, unlike the fucking idiots who voted for Bush, all the fucking Kerry voting idiots said that if Bush won, they were going to go to Canada. Because Bush was evil, and because Canada was like this wonderful paradise. And why Canada is a wonderful paradise because they have socialized medicine. And my other philosophy class, last Wednesday, the instructor called in. He couldn't make it. He had a crisis. We had a substitute who was my buddy Dan Lyons. Those of you around here don't know who Dan Lyons is. He used to teach philosophy. He's an idiot. Here's what's important. Dan went on about how all of the violence in America is caused by computer games, and how they don't have violence in Canada like we have in America. And I thought, but wait, don't they have the same computer games in Canada that we have here? They do. But the point is, Canada is the land of milk and honey. In Canada, there's less violence than America. In Canada, why, they have gun control. Why, in Canada, they have socialized medicine. Why, Canada is where we're all going to go when George Bush, the evil Antichrist, wins the election. Why, Canada is so wonderful. And yet, here we are going on about Canada. Canada is still apparently allowing these seals to be killed. It was in the news just recently. And no, I'm trying to read my notes. I'm sorry, Randy. I know. And in Canada, they eat seal flippers. Apparently, seal flippers are a delicacy up there. That's gross. But my point here is that we're sitting here ragging on Canada in this film about how Canadian government is evil because it allows this to happen. And yet, these very same liberal wacko progressives are the ones who are always telling us how fucking wonderful Canada is. On the same token, we always have to hear about how wonderful Europe is. At one point, this might be in my notes somewhere else, but I'm going to hit it now. At one point, Spear mentioned to us how the Europeans are so much more advanced than we are, ethically and morally, and how we need to be more like the Europeans. And I agree, we should be more like because, in Europe, your pigs can't be confined, and you have to give them a toy to play with and everything else. And I agree, we should be more like the Europeans. We should have autobahns with no speed limit, and we should have no minimum drinking age. And like France, we should get over 80% of our electricity from nuclear power. And we should have racial and ethnic cleansing on a regular basis. I agree, let's totally be like the Europeans. I always find it fascinating that these little fucking liberal animal rights wackos think that all these other countries are so goddamn wonderful until they do something like club baby seals over the head. Now all of a sudden Canada is evil. Now, the point was made in the film, I thought this was funny. They were talking about the fish up their ways being depleted. And there was this argument being made by the opposing sides in the film. One side being that the fish were being depleted by the fishermen, the other side being that the fish were being depleted by the seals eating them. And the eco-wackos from Greenpeace made the point that the seals are in harmony with the nature because they eat the fish, and then they shit. Well, they defecate, I think. It may have been the word he used. But I'm going to say shit, because I can. They shit into the ocean, and so the fish just goes right back into the ecosystem, and that makes it okay. And I thought that was funny, because I thought, does that mean that if we went and shit in the ocean, that would make it okay for us to eat the hell out of the fish? Which, of course, my friend Sarah pointed out that sometimes we do dump our shit in the ocean, and we do. And I don't want this to be, again, I don't want this to be misinterpreted as me saying it's alright for us to abuse natural resources. I mean, we need to obviously conserve the fish. I'm all about fish farming and cultivating the ocean properly and stuff like that. But it's just funny to see these eco-wackos saying, well, it's okay for the seal to eat the fish because the seal shits in the ocean, but it's wrong for humans to eat the fish. In the film, for those of you who haven't seen this and may not know what's going on, it's about the... Alright, I'm trying to think where to start on this. I can't tell the whole story, but alright, up in Canada, they go out there to where the little baby seals are every year, and they club them over the head, and they kill them because they're killing them to get the white pelts. Now, the adult seals are gray. The baby seals are white. And that's why they only kill the baby seals and not the adults. So in order to prevent this, the Greenpeacers went up there and they took some green dye with them, and they sprayed the white seals with the green dye, thus rendering the pelt unusable for commercial purposes, that is, making a coat. Now, of course, what the Greenpeacers are obviously not smart enough to understand, because they're idiots, is that there's a reason why baby seals are white and not gray. In the Arctic, there are two predators for the seals. One is the polar bear, the other is the Arctic fox. The adult seals are large enough and fast enough that when a predator comes, they can usually scooch across the ice, ground, whatever they're on, and get back to the ocean and escape. The baby seals cannot do this. The baby seals are therefore white because that is their natural camouflage. When a predator approaches, the parent takes off and the baby seal lays still and hopefully is not seen. Since Greenpeace sprayed all these seals with green dye, their natural camouflage was therefore defeated, and all of these seals that were saved by Greenpeace from being clubbed over the head were of course subsequently eaten by either a polar bear or a fox. And this just goes to show that what's actually important to the eco-wacko animal rights assholes is not saving animals' lives. It's about feeling good, and it's about denying other people things. It's like, oh well, we stopped the evil seal clubbers. What do you call these people? Seal clubbers. We stopped the evil seal clubbers from seal clubbers. Clubbers. We stopped the evil. Let me do my William Shatner. We stopped the evil seal clubbers from clubbing the seals, but We feel good now. But all these seals were subsequently eaten by an animal. But see, that's okay, because it's okay when the animals eat each other. It's only bad if humans get involved in the situation, right? Right. I'm doing a lot of talking. Does it sound like my voice is going out? I think my voice is going out. We're going to have to take a break soon. Let me wrap up this section, and then we're going to break here. And let me see. I'm looking at... Okay, yeah, we can break this into 2 sections easy enough. Back to the GHP. Mill says that only those who know both sides of an issue, or those who know both sides of a pleasure in a given circumstance, can say which of these pleasures is the greatest. I have more typos in my thingy here. I have another typo somewhere. I can't find it, though. Someone Sarah pointed out, blah, blah, blah. Alright, sorry. So, if you have to know both sides... Oh, there it is. If you have to know both sides of an issue, and this is according to Mill, in order to know both sides, in order to judge which pleasure is greater and which is lesser, you have to know both sides of an issue. Does this mean that only an omnivore can judge between eating or not eating meat? Does this mean that only someone who has clubbed a seal can decide between clubbing or not clubbing? Does this mean that only somebody who has worn a seal pup fur coat can decide between having the coat or not having the coat? This is another problem of utilitarianism when the animal rights wackos try to apply it. Mill says you've got to find people who have experienced both pleasures excuse me, and have them objectively determine which of the pleasures is the greatest. I'm not sure how you do that. I'm not sure how you get these unbiased opinions. I'm not sure that works at all. Maybe if you got a bunch of omnivores together, maybe they'd all say, oh yeah, eating meat is the lesser of the pleasures. Whatever. I don't know. But the point is, it's not workable. And again, we're not discussing necessarily here, do animals have rights? Because they don't. We're not discussing, are some animals treated inhumanely in livestock situations? Because they definitely are. We are discussing, does utilitarianism work? And do the animal rights wackos who so often invoke utilitarianism as their rationale, as their excuse for their belief systems, does that fly? And I'm simply going to point out that yet one more time, it does not. My voice is rapidly going downhill, so I'm going to have to break for a little while and give it a rest. And then we will be back. Randy, do your thing. We're going to get back here. We are going to go over a PETA film about Culture Slaughterhouse. We're going to talk about some more spearisms. And we're going to talk about what is the point. We're going to take another final look at the whole logic of animal rights within the context of utilitarianism, and what does animal rights mean for utilitarianism as a moral theory.